everyone. Thanks very much for being here. All right, so the year is 2012. You're at a braai with some friends, and you've got that one weird friend who's always yammering on about the latest thing in tech, and usually you'd ignore his ramblings, but for some reason, something is making sense this time. Something about money without currency, currency without money, something like that. Anyway, you go home later, you find yourself Googling this new thing called cryptocurrency, and fast forward a couple of months, you've decided to build yourself your own instant crypto buy and sell system. There's just one really, really big question. How? My name is Wesley Robinson. I'm a staff backend engineer at Luno, and I lead the team that's responsible for Luno's instant buy and sell cryptocurrency system. So today I'm going to be talking about what it takes to build your own instant buy and sell service. And well, to be honest, these things are tough, but I'm hoping that at least by the end of this talk, you can come away with some insights into what's going on behind the scenes when you click the buy button. Also, just a couple of disclaimers before we start. I know that many of you may not be in the cryptocurrency space. First of all, what are you doing? It's great out here. But I've been there. I know it's not always easy when people are talking about these things. It can be quite daunting, especially in the context of these services and all that stuff. So what I'm going to try and do is just stay away from all like the cryptocurrency technologies and just focus in on the engineering problem, which I think is the stuff that interests us the most. The other thing is that I'm going to have to be up here and I'm going to have to dodge a few laser beams. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about is veering very close to some of the secret sauce that Luno has, some intellectual property. So there's some things that I just by nature can't be talking about, and I've actually got some Luno representatives over here to come and stop the talk if I go over any lines. But if you really, really want to learn a little bit more about what goes on behind the scenes, Luno's always looking for some great talent. Okay, so before we start on our instant buy and sell service, there's something we need to talk about first, and that is exchanges. This is going to be really important context for building our own service because, well, ultimately what we're going to have to do is interact with these exchanges. They're a great place for people to go buy and sell cryptocurrency. I'm going to use a metaphor that's going to be disturbing to some of my Luno colleagues over here, but you can imagine an exchange as like a farmer's market, for example, where you can only go and buy bananas. If you want apples, there's another farmer's market just down the road, right? So in this metaphor, our farmers grow all their beautiful bananas, walk into the market, they set up shop, and they set a price for their bananas. On the other side, our buyers enter the market with some money in their pockets. They're banana hungry and they go and find the price that they're happy with, and then they execute the trade. This isn't exactly right. In reality, there's no shop fronts at this market. There's no stores. This isn't a Oranjezicht. This market is an empty building, and on the front, there's one big register out front for the farmers, where they need to, instead of going up and setting up a shop, they need to register their intention to sell 10 bananas at 10 Rand, right? And we call this making a buy order, in essence. And then at the same time, they take their bananas, they place it in a safety deposit box, going to keep it fresh, cold, everything's going to be delicious at the end. Now, on the other side, we have another register for the buyers. The buyers, similar to the farmers, I may have used the word farmer earlier, but anyway, similar to the farmers, we have another register for buyers, where buyers go and register their intention to buy some of these things. Instead of actually doing a one-on-one transaction with the farmers, as you would in the markets that we know about, you as a buyer come and say, I have X amount of money and I want to buy Y amount of bananas, right? And you put that up on your register. That is now a buy order. Okay, cool. So once you have that, and also obviously you need to put your currency away in some reserve. Now, once we've got these two registers, if you put them together, this is called an order book. Okay, and I know a lot of you probably know this, but not everyone does. So let's just bear with me for a second. So an order book is a very important concept. It's going to be coming up a little bit later. So remember that term, right? Remember, basically two registers put together, one big order book. And now at this point, there's going to be some impartial entity at the market, and their job is essentially to monitor this order book and see, okay, I have a farmer willing to sell a banana at 10 Rand, and I have a buyer who's looking for a banana at 10 Rand. Cool, we can match those two entities together and execute a trade. They'll go fetch the bananas, give it to the buyer, fetch the money, give it to the farmer, and everyone's happy, right? And essentially, that's kind of all that we need to know about exchanges for this talk. One important thing is that this order book thing is public, right? It's something that the farmers and the buyers will be using when they want to go and price their bananas when they enter the markets. They want to be able to see what people are buying bananas at before they set their own price. So that's also just an important thing for us to know. And yeah, as I say, these exchanges are much more complicated places than this, but honestly, this is kind of the fundamental that the rest of exchanges are built on top of. Okay, cool. So that's all we need to know right now about exchanges. Let's get back to our instant buy service that we've decided to make. So let's start. Imagine this little guy is one of our users. What do our users want? Well, as a user, this remote wants to be able to buy into the cryptocurrency world, but they don't want to interact with all the complexities of these fancy exchanges and the blockchain. Like, these are very difficult concepts. We want them to be able to buy into this amazing world without any of that difficulty, right? So for us, building this new app, that comes with a bunch of implicit requirements. Essentially, the three that we're going to be focusing on right now is that we want to provide competitive pricing for our users. If we don't give them competitive pricing, they're going to go to someone else. We want fast execution of these quotes and fast movement of money. This, in the crypto industry, is especially important. As many of you know, it's dynamic, to say the least. So it's important for our buyers to be able to take advantage of these big shifts in prices over time. So we need to provide them with fast execution. It also provides a level of trust, right? When a buy happens quickly, our users see the money in their account and they feel good about it. And lastly, safety and security. This one is obvious, but we're handling people's real money, and we need to make sure that we're doing that right. And just as an aside, there are many, many ways that we can do this. I'm not going to be discussing the correct solution. There's no correct solutions, as you guys probably know. My intention here is really just to take you through some of the concerns that you might come across if you're building one of these systems for yourself. And we'll talk a little bit about maybe some potential solutions. But again, these are all solutions that have their own set of trade-offs. It's our job as these business builders to analyze these trade-offs and decide what is best for us and what is acceptable for us over time. Okay, cool. So a first iteration might look something like this, right? This is as simple as it's going to get. On one side, we have a user. Our users asked us for 100 Rand of Bitcoin. Our job is to give them some Bitcoin, but the first thing we need to do is figure out how much Bitcoin we're going to give them, right? This is actually something that's not too difficult to do, given all of the context we now have about these order books and these exchanges out there. What we can do is just go and have a look at one of these order books. All we need to do right now is not trade or do anything fancy with the market. We just want to go and see what the kind of general market value of a Bitcoin is. And using that information, we can then create a price for our user, right? And at that point, we'll send that price back to the user, and the user is going to say either, no, I don't like it, which is completely fine. But in this example, they're happy, right? So they say, cool, I like that price, willing to make this trade. And at that point, we need to then move the money from the user's account into our account for the rands, and the Bitcoin out of our little store of Bitcoin over here into the user's account. In this picture, there is a bit of a problem already. What about if there are hundreds and hundreds of customers and suddenly they're all buying up all of our float and we don't have any more to sell of our customers? Well, yeah, that is a big problem, and we're going to get to that just a little bit later. The important bit right now is that we've allowed users to ask us for some Bitcoin. We've figured out how to calculate how much we're going to give them. Essentially, we've figured out pricing. And then we're able to make that trade, right? All that technology is there. But there might be better prices out there, right? So each exchange is its own entity. There's not one banana market out there. There may be thousands and thousands of these things, and every single one of these exchanges has its own order book, its own set of farmers, its own set of buyers, and they've decided what the correct price of a banana is locally to that exchange. And what this means is that, as with all of these exchanges out there, there's going to be subtle differences in the prices across all of these things. There are traders out there who will take advantage of these facts, arbitrages, if you guys know. So the markets tend to kind of generally track one another, but the important bit for us is that there is some difference. So it's not sufficient for us to just look at one exchange order book and be like, okay, this is the price that we're going to be giving our people. So what we've heard is that there's this cool company, Luno. They provide, as we've heard, this excellent, reliable, efficient, beautiful, and like really, really popular exchange out there. And what we want is to integrate their prices into our platform. So now we've got two exchanges. We've got these two order books, and our buy and sell service now has the job of managing this extra complexity. And as you can imagine, we're not going to just stop at two at this point. We're going to have many exchanges across the world. The more we add, the more competitive that we can be over time. At the same time, our users also complaining that this whole process is a little bit slow. Every time they ask us for Bitcoin, we're slow in giving them a price back. But right now, let's just talk about this order book problem. For us, it's hard and it's slow to inspect these order books. Every single time we need to go and fetch these things from these exchanges that live over the internet. So we need a way to make this whole thing fast. One way to do this is to look at what exactly we want from these exchanges. Essentially, all we're looking, like I said, we're not looking to trade with them, we're not looking to do anything fancy. We just want to look at their order book, and an order book is a group of orders. Think a farmer, he says, I want 5 bananas, or I've got 5 bananas to sell at 10 Rand each, right? Essentially, he's saying that he has a sell order, he has 5 bananas, some kind of a volume, and he's priced his thing. And these are the 3 things that are involved and that are important to us in an order. And luckily, that's kind of a standard thing across all exchanges. So immediately it should be clear that we can create some kind of an abstraction to represent this order. And what that means is that we can then take order books from multiple places, smash them together into one huge mega order book, and use that as from our instant buy and sell service instead to fetch prices from. So now our complexity has moved out of our service and into this kind of abstract layer, and we're able to add as many exchanges as we like on the other side, which is obviously great, right? We want to take advantage of as many of these exchanges as we can, and price differences. So we're getting better, but remember, the customer was complaining that our service is slow. And it's actually, we've discovered it's getting a lot worse now that we've added a lot of exchanges, right? The problem here may be obvious, but we're going out over the internet to talk to these places to fetch their order books in order to create prices. Fetching stuff over the internet, no matter how efficient these exchanges are, just comes with some base amount of latency that we just can't get around. And as a business, the last thing that we want to be doing is losing customers because our system is slow, right? We want to give our customers the ability to take advantage of market swings. And if they're experiencing slowness in our app, they're not going to trust us to be able to do that. So it's kind of a non-negotiable. We have to solve this problem. Being the good developers that we are, we decide, well, what about caching this thing? Well, it's not so simple, right? These order books are very dynamic things. They're changing all of the time, right? These farmers and these buyers, they are loving bananas, and there are millions of them out there. If you've ever looked at one of these order books, you'll see it's insane. It's chaos out there. So we need to figure out some way to leverage this powerful concept of caching, but while not sacrificing the ability to give people an appropriate price over time. Now, this is a hard problem, right? It's cache and validation. It's one of the 2 hard problems out there. But as a business that wants to retain its customers, we need to accept this and need to accept that we're going to need to make some kind of a trade-off here. So what we've noticed is that over time, yes, these order books are crazy. They're going insane. But if you track the price, just like an average price over time, it turns out that thing is somewhat continuous. And essentially what I mean by that is if I buy a banana for 10 Rand, I can make a reasonable bet that in 3 seconds or 5 seconds, that banana is still going to cost somewhere in the region of 10 Rand, right? I can't make that bet for a minute, and certainly not for half an hour. So there's this kind of temporal risk associated with these bets that we're making. As a business, that's the kind of decision we're going to need to make. Right now, without getting too into depth into this, I think we're going to make a sweeping judgment call, and we are going to accept a 5-second risk, say. And we're going to cache all of these prices locally. 5 seconds, it's cool. We would prefer that risk over losing customers because of some kind of a slow execution. Okay, cool. So at this point, we now have the very best prices, and it's instantly available to our users. But, well, yeah, there might be better prices out there, right? The crypto is a very competitive industry, and if we're not staying at the forefront of this thing, we're going to lose customers to our competitors who might be providing better prices. So we need to look deeper at this point. Now, if you're a trader, you will know that these markets are strange and unpredictable places. You might expect reasonably that if I were to buy a banana for 10 Rand and I can buy an apple for 5 Rand, I'm able to buy a banana for 2 apples, right? Well, actually, no. It turns out I've got to go to an entirely different exchange and where I can trade bananas and apples. And they've decided on their own price entirely, independently of the Rands Bananas exchange. Sorry, the banana thing is getting a bit much, I understand, but bear with me again. Okay, so we go to this banana apple exchange. It turns out we're able to buy 1.25 bananas for the 2 apples that we have. And so it turns out for us, it's going to be cheaper for us to take that 10 Rand, buy into apples, and then use those apples to buy some bananas. Okay, well, that's very cool, but how do we in our system take advantage of that? Well, one option is essentially to brute force this thing. We have a set of assets that we support, right? So we've got Rands on one side, apples, bananas, maybe lemons. Every time a user requests something, we've got very quick access to a bunch of order books. Maybe we can get all of this data, shove it into some magical mathematical machine, and it's going to spit out the best answer for us. Well, yeah, that's going to work, but any good interviewee is going to tell you that this isn't going to scale. It's certainly not as we add more and more assets. The number of permutations that we're going to have to calculate is going to go through the roof. So we need something better. So one thing that we can try is to instead model all of these assets as nodes in a graph, right? And then we can model all of the bypaths between these nodes as edges on that graph. And essentially what this is saying is that I can buy apples with Rands, I can buy bananas with Rands, but I can't buy lemons with Rands. I have to go via one of the other two. Just bear with me again. So now what we have is a graph where all of our assets are listed as nodes on this graph. Once we've got graphs, we get to take advantage of an entire division of computer science graph theory where people are much smarter than us are creating these amazing pathfinding algorithms in order to find the most efficient way to go from one place to another. In our case, our user wants to buy using Rands and they want bananas at the end. So we can, now that we have this graph, we can just run one of these pathfinding algorithms and it's going to spit out the most efficient path between those two nodes for us, right? And in this case, we're going to go back to that apples and bananas market. Okay, so at this point I am stepping just a little bit close to some Luno secret sauce, so I'm gonna leave this here, but I hope that you can see that there are always ways that we can improve things, and this in particular is a very powerful concept, and we can encode a lot of very cool things into these things. All right, so I've spoken a lot about pricing. Earlier I mentioned that we have this thing of float as well. Let's step away now from the pricing. I think we've got a pretty good idea of how to get at least reasonably decent prices for our users. So let's tackle this other thing, right? We've got this problem where we have some kind of float, and anyone who does this will tell you it's a good idea to keep some of this float in reserve. When you want to sell your customers something, it's nice to be able to sell them out of a reserve so that you can make some guarantees to your customers that they'll be able to get the thing you can, it's just a whole lot safer, and it makes the whole execution of a trade much more efficient. So, the risk that we spoke about earlier was essentially what we call a buy run. Right? In crypto terms, this means that the price might be increasing and everyone is suddenly trying to buy, and what we find as people who have this float or a service that has some finite amount of float is we end up giving all of this stuff away and we stop being able to service our customers. Now, on one side of this problem is the fact that what we've spoke about, we always need to keep enough floats in order to service our customers, right? That much is pretty obvious. But on the other side of this, this float represents a lot of risk to our company. You can imagine, like, if we've bought millions and millions and millions of bananas, kept them in a whole big vat that's going to keep them fresh again, but for some reason, by global warming, say, banana trees are sprouting up everywhere. Like, you can't go 5 meters without stepping on a banana. Suddenly, the supply of bananas worldwide is going to go through the roof. People can only eat so much, so the demand stays the same and the price plummets. So now we've spent all of this money on this giant box of floats, and essentially it's now worthless due to some market conditions that we had no control over. So the point here is that this keeping a huge amount of the stuff is a risk, but we do need to keep enough to be able to service our customers. Right, well, like with everything, there's many ways that we can deal with this. As a business, again, it's our job to be aware of the trade-offs of each of these choices. One option that we have is what we call counter trading, right? And essentially what this means is that every time a user comes and buys a banana from us, we then go over to some exchange and buy that banana back, right? And it turns out this is actually quite a nice way of doing things, because we've used one of these exchanges in order to price the thing that we've given out to our customer. So the money that they gave us, we can make a reasonable assumption that we're going to be able to take that money and spend it and get at least as much back as we gave away. So suddenly now we've got a way of replenishing our floats, and the nice thing is that as users buy more, we do more of these trades. Essentially our float replenishment is proportional to the amount of stuff our users are buying from us, which is great, but obviously scaling this out to millions and millions and millions of users turns out to be really difficult. But there are strategies out there that you can use to manage that complexity, like batching, so that you don't do too many trades and all that good stuff. Okay, cool. So I think that's enough buts. Honestly, right now, what we have is a functional buy service, right? We're able to supply good rates to our users. We're able to provide them, do this all very efficiently because we've cached, and we're even auto-managing some of our own floats. So that's it. Well, no, in the real world, these things are not obviously so simple. And unfortunately, we live in that real world, and there's a lot of things that we're going to need to take care of out there. One thing, the crypto industry is dynamic, as I mentioned. Our service is going to need to scale to meet that demand, for example. Another thing is that we might want to be a very trusted entity. Like, I'd be lying if I said that there's a lot of trust out there in the crypto ecosystem. I think to stand out, it's a good idea to become viewed as one of those trusted entities, so customers are more likely to come to us. We need a stable platform. In order to become trusted, we need to abide by certain regulations. And because this is a new industry, these regulations are changing all the time. And especially for us, if we plan to make it big, we might want to expand into new national territories, for example. And each of these places have their own set of regulations that we're going to need to abide by. Luno, for example, is a registered financial service provider, and with this comes with a lot of responsibility with how we handle people's data and how we do reporting on that data and all that sort of thing. And the important thing is that these are good problems, right? They're difficult, but at the end of the day, we're handling real people's real money, and we need to be making sure that we're doing it right. Okay, and that really is everything. So to recap, we built a buy service from some base principles. We consolidated an order book from multiple exchanges, and we cached it so that it's available almost instantly. We even leveraged some graph theory in order to find the very best pricing that we can from across multiple exchanges and multiple assets. And we also discussed to some degree like the big float problem out there. These are just honestly some of the things that are being solved behind the scenes whenever you open your Luno app and you click that buy button. At Luno, I started right at the beginning from the customer's point of view of this whole thing, and that was on purpose, because at Luno, the customer is really at the heart of our philosophy of engineering. We believe that it's our job to tackle these very complicated issues that come with living in a real world, so that our users have the simplest experience that they can, so that our users don't have to tackle this complexity. Our systems are growing in incredibly exciting and dynamic ways. If you're very keen to join in, hop on the mothership. Please come speak to us down in our booth. There's golf, so come and hit some balls in a hole. Or reach out to us through our careers page. Thank you very much. We really look forward to finding the very best prices for you.